Good evening, beautiful people. Good evening. I hope you all are doing well, staying safe, staying warm. If you are in the DMV area, maybe you ventured out into the cold weather today. It's pretty icy out there. It's pretty icy out there. But yeah, I hope you all are doing well. I hope you all have been staying safe, um, protecting your mental, finding time for an emotional release valve, and continuing to strive to become beneficial. We are reading with Jam. I'm Jam or Jamal Calpin. Thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, The Beneficial Black Man, for those on YouTube. And for those who are joining me on Instagram, at Jamal Calpin. Thank you for joining me with Reading with Jam. And what is Reading with Jam? Well, I am an actor, voice actor, and I'm interested in helping Black men become their best selves by overcoming gray mediocrity to live a life for glory, for good, and for the deep joy that resides inside of them. And so Reading with Jam is me spending time practicing my voiceover skills by narrating and acting and stuff, what I read, but also reading content, personal development content that I find beneficial for myself or that I would be interested in, but also what I think would be beneficial for you all as well. And so this book that I'm reading is kind of heavy. This is going to be part 2 of I Don't Abuse. I don't know how to do this and to do this in a way that it doesn't get flagged on YouTube. Excuse me. But I don't SA Black females. Written by Dr. Walter Arthur McCray. And for those on YouTube, I'm gonna put up that is the title of the book. And for those on Instagram, again, I don't SA Black females by Dr. Walter McCray. And so we're reading part 2, or this is part 2 of reading that book. And I know for a lot of women, the term females is triggering, and I understand that. The main reason I understand that the author chose that title is because it's ranging from children to adults. So instead of just, I don't SA Black women, it's including the spectrum of children as well. So young females and adult females. So the whole spectrum of females. But we are continuing to read today, and we're in chapter 2. So again, thank you all. What's going on, Level Up Single Mom? Hopefully you're doing well. Hopefully you're doing well. I guess I have to give fair warning every time I read this book now. It's a short book, but it could definitely be triggering because of the content matter. But I do think it's very important to read this book. Again, my intention is to get the content of this book out so that other people hear it, read it, are exposed to it, particularly Black men, because I think it's important, especially. Oh, thank you. I did have a pretty good holiday. Thank you. Thank you for asking. I hope you did the same. Had a good holiday as well. But in light of a lot of the recent allegations and stuff regarding Sean Combs, Sean Puff Daddy, P. Diddy Combs, and to me, honestly, I think there's going to be more and more allegations coming out. And I think it's important for us as Black men to take this seriously. Take all of the allegations and all the things that are happening in our community and in our society seriously, and really making a commitment to not harm our sisters any longer, or allow harm to come towards our sisters in our community. And this book is focused on that, in making this affirmation and this declaration and establishing this standard for the men of our community. So yeah, I think it's important to read. So I'm gonna try to make my way through it. Hopefully YouTube won't take it down. That Instagram won't kick me off. And we'll see how far we get. So I got 30 minutes on the clock. Let's get into it. I Don't SA Black Females by Dr. Walter Arthur McCray. Chapter 2. Focus on devalued sisters' sexual victims and brothers' commitment to protection. Justified regard for Black female sexual victims. Focus. Most stories of males sexually SAing females that are receiving extensive exposure in the media deal with the cases and complaints of white women, not Black women. Our sisters' experience is too often unjustifiably disregarded, minimized, or devalued in our society's coverage. In matters of SA, many often view the female factor as general and dominant, while they subsume the Black racial and ethno-cultural factors underneath the overall issue. Others focus on the holistic Black and female dimension of SA and the experience of African descended sisters. This discussion attempts the same. For reasons stated below, we call on Black Christian men, or any all Black men, to justifiably focus on addressing the SA issue of our cultural sisters. Slavery. Historically and comparatively, females of African descent have suffered more SA in America than females of other groups. The experience of Black chattel slavery at the hands of whites in America and its aftermath by far accounts for the plethora of abused Black women, female adolescents, and girls by white males. White males abuse Black females, and white slave owners force Black males into sexual relationships with Black females. As pawns in the enslaver system of economic exploitation, some Black males took advantage of the abusive sexual arrangements. Hey, Themis. The abuse of Black females in slavery. The abuse of Black females in slavery is a historical scourge upon America and the white male and female upholders of the dehumanizing system. In the past, society did not take Black female incidences of sexual violation legally or seriously, and the media unreported their experiences as sexual victims. The problems of dehumanization and disrespect of Black female life persists in America. Exclusion. In current times, there is a general exclusion of the Black female story of abuse from the narratives of white American female abuse. Whether the just causes of Black female victims of abuse will rise with the current tide of public outrage against white male sexual abuse of white women is a matter of wait and see. Abused Black women, younger females, and girls still have a long way to go for identification and vindication in American society. Black female experiences and accounts of abuse by white males or by Black males struggles more for exposure, legal redress, and justice than do the occurrences of their white female counterparts. Some sexual victimizers threaten and intimidate their female victims to keep silent about the abuse the women have suffered. Other sex offenders socially and immorally coerce female sexual victims into accepting hush money. In startling cases across the U.S., some legal jurisdictions have failed to even process the medical evidence provided by rape victims. Stories of suffering untold. Increasingly, the mass media and social networks are spotlighting the very personal, embarrassing, and sordid stories of sexually violated female sufferers. Yet, it is not enough. The wider public never hears the numerous tell-all revelations that many Black and other female sexual victims eventually disclose in private counseling sessions, in small, close-knit groups, or in troublesome court cases. The silence of sexual incidences against Black females in underreported or never reported cases is deafening. For every African American woman who risks the compounded pain of reporting her rape, blame the victim, Jezebel stereotype, at least 15 African American women do not report theirs. Women, surely Black women, are tired, angry, and driven to advance the cause of exposing their male abuse predators. They are beginning to push and reassert their cases of abuse issues to the forefront of the news and deeply into American consciousness. They rightfully do so. Many others must hear their stories. More men, a wider public, determined prosecutors, sensitive lawmakers, and discouraged sister victims must hear the accounts of abused females and their suffering. sorry, there's a section here that lists a variety of things that relate to male sexual violations. Sexually related contracted diseases, physical trauma, ruined lives, broken careers, disrupted relationships, demoralized and demonized spirits, psychological scars, and more are all due to male sexual violations. Good evening. They must hear the stories and outcry of disgusted yet hopeful and stronger, as abused female survivors. Code of silence. The African American community, including Black believers and churches, have far too many of our share of cases dealing with females violated by S abuse. While we must carefully avoid the historical white stereotype that Black men are inherently sexual predators of white women, we must also resist slipping into denial about the S abuse problems within our community. Most Black men are not criminal S abusers of Black females, but the females of our community experience too many cases of male S abuse. For a variety of reasons, Black believers and churches, Christian circles, organizations, and families keep quiet about many of their male sexual scandals. Pathetically, an S abuse code of silence influences the African American community and certain sectors of Black Christian faith. As individual believers, African American male followers of Christ should not seek to skirt this problematic and prevalent sexual issue. In the matter of S abuse, especially on Black females, none of us Black Christian men can conveniently hide beneath the cultural covers of racism, the system, injustice, oppression for the cause, lack of social and economic opportunities, or the like. Attempts to justify our silence or inaction on these grounds just doesn't work. In this matter, our social reality is a moral Black male on Black female sexual issue. Brothers' cultural commitment to sisters' sexual protection. Step up. Despite the cover of silence and its shame, God calls Black Christian men, and I believe all men, regardless of your faith or whatever, God calls Black men to address this socially hot discussion in the sexual state of affairs in our community in an open and straight up manner. The male S abuse of females in African American relationships is a spiritual, community, and cultural problem, not just a societal problem. Instead of acquiescing to the sexual code of silence in our community, Black Christian men must step up to change the Black male's code of sexual misconduct toward Black females. The historical and contemporary experiences of Black female victims of S abuse are major reasons that Christian Black men should protect females of African descent from becoming sexual victims. Black men must not emulate and perpetuate white male patterns of sexually abusing Black females, past or present. We must always resist acting the part of our oppressors in their sexually unrighteous practices. Do not envy the oppressor and choose none of his ways. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 31. As Black men who profess Christ, we must be the very last male group in American society that entertains even a passing thought to commit S abuse on any Black female. Commit. I believe that God's prophetic voice is calling Christian males of African descent to commitment. By faithful obedience, we must heed the divine call and accept the sexual social challenge of our day. The holiness of the God that we serve obligates Black male believers to respond to the changing sexual attitudes and social transformations taking place in our society and community. God expects us to step up our game. The time has arrived for us to take decisive action in this sexually moral moment by making a clear and unequivocal stand for sexual justice. In the arena of sexual interrelations, as Black Christian men, we must demonstrate personal righteousness and civility, must show cultural compassion, and must promote justice and vindication for our sexually violated sisters. And, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, each of us must advance this righteous cause by affirming a personal commitment. I don't abuse Black females. Affirmative words and preventive actions. A practical discussion. The spiritual affirmation cited above anchors this entire discussion. It is a personal response to a divine mandate. It is a practical means by which each brother can take personal ownership of the S abuse problem that negatively impacts our own women, our male ranks, and our community's progress. The obvious aim of this affirmation is to help our brothers to prevent and rectify the S abuse experienced by Black sisters, a not infrequent immoral and or illegal practice in our community and in society. As implied above, culture and faith give context to this Black and Christian perspective, which focuses on the key role of African American male believers in addressing the issue of female S abuse by males in the Black community. Biblical ideas. Specific biblical ideas inform this Black Christian perspective. Here, you have a practical biblical approach for curtailing the S abusive behavior of Black males. The approach supplies protective solutions to help you, as a brother, to remedy the S abuse problem facing many Black sisters. Word-based principles appear in this discussion, several in the straightforward form of 7 sexual affirmations and 7 sexually related guidelines. Affirmations and actions. If you feel the urgent need, we encourage you to go directly to corrective principles and practices. So the book is kind of, I agree. 100% agree. Dita C. Thank you for your comment. Thank you for hanging out. But, I agree. So the book, just a quick note, the book kind of reads more like a like a textbook. So it doesn't necessarily flow, and it's got like all these different things, like affirmations and all this other stuff. But let's keep going. Affirmations and actions. If you feel the urgent need, we encourage you to go directly to corrective principles and practices, part 3, and read there first. There you will find biblical explanations and applications for your immediate use. Apply these principles to protect those sisters who are in your life and under your influence from sexual violations. Affirm and practice these guidelines to guard yourself from doing any S abusive thing that could result in civil or legal repercussions. Here are the affirmations. I am sexually spiritual. I am sexually moral. I am sexually civil. I am sexually ethnical. I am sexually ethical. I am sexually legal. I am sexually protectorial. Here are the 7 sexually related relationship practices that a brother should apply in his interactions with the sisters. First, practice sexual consecration as a primary virtue. Second, promote community and male-female relationships. Third, use clear communication on sexual matters. Fourth, keep control of your sexual urges and conduct. Fifth, follow your conscience in sexual gray areas. Sixth, take confession of sexual sins seriously. And seventh, make a covenant with your eyes for sexual purity. By applying these principles and practices, you manifest a sincere determination and effort as a Black male believer, as a brother who desires to make a social difference and change by positively reordering sexual interrelations between Black males and Black females, and maintaining sexually responsible behavior. And again, believe it or not, I think this can apply to any Black man. The biblical affirmations and practices that you observe can assist you in demonstrating personal integrity as a Christ-centered Black man who honestly confronts the issue of sexually protecting Black females, our sisters. Perspective and purpose. The second section is Christian perspective and prophesying. Here you will find an in-depth understanding of S abuse, integrated with biblical ideas and solutions. There is also an expanded discussion of unethical sexual practices of Black men and the meaning of our sexual integrity as brothers, even as Black men who follow Christ. Protective purpose and outcomes. Overall, this discussion aims to motivate and empower us as Christian Black brothers to provide a greater measure of sexual protection, first for our sisters, with the goal that each one can freely relate to any of us without fear of sexual threats or abuse, and consequently for ourselves, with the goal that none of us commit moral, civil, or criminal sexual violations. All right, I got 15 minutes left, so I'm going to try to read another chapter. But we are in part 2 now. Christian perspective and prophesying. So again, the book is really short, actually. So I'm going to get through chapter 3. And again, another note, to me, just like people can use biblical principles like Proverbs and other things like that to apply to their life, I don't think you have to be a Christian to apply this stuff to your to try to stand by these standards as a Black man. So if you hear that, don't block it out. Like, these are things that we can still apply and use regardless of our faith, in my opinion. All right, chapter 3. S abuse definition and Christian biblical ideas. Understand S abuse legally. Harm. Sharpening our understanding of the definitive nature of S abuse is helpful. Generally, S abuse is sexual harm, mistreatment, or misuse of a person. It is undesired, unwanted, and unsafe sexual behavior by one, usually stronger, person, upon another, weaker. The abuser's inappropriate, indecent, or worse behavior may be by contact or inactivity, or by attempting such conduct upon a non consenting person. It may be an overt act or a subtle manipulation. S abuse may happen as an isolated event or a repeated practice. Uncivil and criminal. Laws related to sexual crimes can differ from state to state. As a rule, that legally defines its uncivil and criminal nature. Consider that S abuse as harassment, intimidation, sexism, homophobic mistreatment, molestation, assault, grape, and the like. Covers inappropriate, sexually related, or motivated gestures, speech, or actions, control, or manipulation. S abuse is sexual misconduct, exploitation, or battery. It can be threatening, forceful, and drug and alcohol induced sexually related assault. This includes grape and date grape, i.e., unwanted vaginal, oral, or anal penetration. We're all adults. Okay. Sexual slavery and trafficking and other forms of physical sexual violence. Some types of DV include the sexual assault or rape of one's spouse or intimate partner. Again, sorry, this topic is kind of heavy. Yeah, it's kind of heavy. All right, let's keep pushing through. Power, not love. S abuse is not an act of pleasure or passionate love. S abuse is an immoral, illegal, harmful, and harsh sexual expression of power, authority, control, aggression, oppression, or violence, but is not an expression of genuine love. S abuse attacks the victim's physical and psychological integrity and their dignity, respect, and security. S abuse is a hostile and destructive act. Scope and impact. Consider the wide spectrum and impact of S abuse. The scope of S abusive behavior covers many persons and classes. S abuse shows its destructive face across the world, from women to men, from children to elders, from girls to boys, from spouses to singles, from parents to siblings, from persons with developmental disabilities to persons with dementia, from majorities to minorities, from churches and religious groups to private and public entities in society, from direct personal contact to indirect personal contact via digital communication. In American society, there are S abused females by males and females, S abused children by adults they know and trust, S abused males by men and women, S abused wives and husbands by their spouse, S abused elders by someone younger, S abused dependents by their caretakers or guardians, S abused patients by their doctors or medical caregivers, S abused stepchildren by a stepparent in a blended family, etc. All these persons and entities may experience S abuse in a variety of ways, and certainly the victims face related issues, consequences, and effects on their life and future well being. The specific focus of this conversation is on S abuse Black females. Our task is to help prevent the male S abuse of women, younger females, and little girls, to sexually protect Black females from the abusive behavior of Black males. Highlight S abuse biblically. Biblical, holistic definition. This is a Christian and biblical perspective on male S abuse. Christian biblical definitions and descriptions of abusive sexual behavior cover and prohibit a wider range of abusive sexual acts and behaviors than civil and criminal legal definitions. Our society's standards of accountability in areas of sexual behavior are usually lower than Scripture taught divine standards for a person's sexual spirituality. S abuse on a legal continuum, not illegal, to legally uncivil, to criminal sexual rudeness, to sexual harassment, to S assault, rape, grape. So not legal, and then to the far end of it is grape or S assault. This discussion is holistic in that it attempts to shine a biblically defined spotlight on all S abusive, harmful behavior by Black males, whether illegal or not. In an overall Christian perspective, Scripture expositors can make the case that believers should classify all forms of S abuse by males or by females as sexually unspiritual, immoral. Sexually unspiritual, immoral behaviors are sinful and are inherently harmful either to another or to oneself, whether the behaviors are illegal or lawful. Biblical lists of sexual sins, you can look at Mark chapter 7, verse 21, Romans chapter 1, verse 24, 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 9, Galatians chapter 5, verse 19, Ephesians 4, verse 19, and Colossians 3, verse 5. In the eyes of God's law, that is, his commandments and spiritual standards as biblically defined, any sexually unholy and immoral perceptions, any sexually unholy and immoral perceptions or behavior expressed by a male toward a female is abusive. Biblically speaking, S abuse may cover anything that is sexually unspiritual, immoral, ranging from a person's thoughts to their communication to their conduct. Thus, in this conversation, S abuse covers more than a male's illegal sexual activity involving a female, whether he has violated civil or criminal laws. Spiritual harm. Hola, hola, hola. Spiritual harm. For instance, on the one hand, a male's words may be sexually vulgar and harmful to a female, but they are not necessarily illegal. On the other hand, a male's sexual actions on a female may indicate violent S assault or rape, which certainly are harmful and criminal. Though one behavior is illegal and the other is not, each of these occurrences are instances of male S abuse. Both cause harm to a female in its own way. Such behavior even may harm others in a relationship to the female. For example, consider the harm brought to young boys and girls who witness inappropriate sexual conversation or S assault, whether verbal or physical, on their mother or another Black female. In either case, the behavior of the male S abuser is damaging the lives of the female and those impressionable children. Brothers must cease and avoid all manner of S abuse harm committed on Black females, whether the sexual behavior flies under the legal radar or is straight up criminal. A Black male should never take pleasure in S abusive behavior simply because what he sexually does to a sister is permissible or non-prosecutable in the eyes of the law. All S abuse is spiritually harmful, and spiritual harm is great harm, and is subjective to divine retribution. All right, almost at the end of the chapter. Hey, Prince Petty. Hey, everybody. Ambitious sexual values. This Christian biblical approach to correcting male S abuse unapologetically advocates ambitious sexual values and spiritual standards for Black men who confess Jesus Christ. Again, I don't think you have to be a Christian to want to try to live these out. God's word commands us as brothers to step up our game in the sexual arena of life. He commands us to hold one another accountable for our sexual behavior as brothers who fellowship in churches and Christian circles and in the greater society. It doesn't have to stop with the four walls. For certain, as brothers, we must all keep ourselves legal by never committing legally uncivil or criminal sexual activities. All of us must consistently show civility in our gender-to-gender expressions, manners, and behavior. And we do ourselves well as Black Christian men when we strive to continually please God by becoming sexually spiritual in all our thoughts and ways, both in private and in public. Characterize as abusive, characterize as abusive behaviors. Terms of abuse. Oh wow, hold on. I might have to stop. This chapter is longer than I thought. I okay, I'm gonna do another section. And then I'm gonna stop. All right, here we go. Sorry. Characterize as abusive behaviors. Terms of abuse. Several familiar terms characterize the essence of the harmful behavior of an as abusive person. Consider unspiritual, immoral, uncivil, unethical, and illegal criminal. Alongside these, I believe that S abuse is also unethical, indicating that this S abusive behavior brings harm to one's ethno-cultural group, in this context, to the African American group. Unethical sexual behavior is an expression of the abusive sexual conduct that Black males do to Black females, or it is how non-Black males focus on sexually targeting Black females precisely because they are Black or African American. The sexual experience of African Americans during their slavery experience by whites, or hate crimes and sexual violence directed against a specific racial group or class. This type of S abuse on Black females is anti-cultural to the overall progress of African American people, since it is destructive of Black sisters and or of their relationships to Black men in the context of a people of African descent in America. Oh, wait. Here we go. All right. I don't know where to stop now. So much. Okay. I'm just gonna have to stop. I'm out of time anyway. My final thoughts. I think it to me one, thank you all for joining me. I appreciate it. And thank you, Level Up Single Mom. I appreciate this. I appreciate you sharing this. If you do enjoy the content, please like it. That does help. I do want more and more people, particularly men, to be exposed to this content because we got to get our crap together. But yes, thank you all. When I was thinking about this book, it felt so silly at some point because you would assume that people should just know this. Like, like for example, like defining what abuse is. We would think, oh, everybody should just know that. But it's sad, I would say, particularly as men, that for some odd reason, we don't. And we're not taught how to, I'm gonna generally speaking, we're not taught how to respect women, to keep boundaries, and to not be abusive in this manner. I think about my time in college, like my freshman year in college, and I was part of a fraternity, and we had to like sit through. I don't want to call it like it's not like DEI because I don't think that was a thing, but it was like talking about grape culture and how to identify it and avoid it and all this stuff. And I felt really bad because, as an older teenager, say like 18, 19, that was like the first time I was exposed to that kind of conversation. And in hindsight, thinking about it, if I wasn't part of Greek life culture, I don't know if I ever would have been exposed to that conversation because it never came up. It never came up, and it's sad and it's disgusting that this kind of behavior, as abusive behavior, is so commonly perpetuated in our society and definitely within our community. And again, I think that's why this ties so closely to the stuff that's happening with like P. Diddy and any of the other artists or celebrities like R. Kelly, even in other fields of the industry, like Bill Cosby, all this stuff that people just gloss over. But it's been causing so much harm within our community. But I understand that our community and the society and the world that we live in is very misogynistic and very misogynoiristic. And so they don't take time and energy to like, how can we protect the least of these? That's whenever me and my wife have this kind of conversation, she talks about this. Like, yeah, black women are the least of these, along with children. But even in the context of the church, as this author is writing, since the book is supposed to be directed towards black Christian men, a lot of S abuse and assault happens within the church. It's terrible. But I think that's why it's so important to read this, because it's like, even though I think the expectation is that there would be like a core innate moral code for people to just like, okay, we don't do that. It seemed like within our community and within our society, we have to be taught these things. These things have to be reestablished over and over and over again. So I mean, even in the chapters that I just read, the sections that I just read, it's important for us to identify, well, what is considered abuse? Why is this bad? What does it look like? And how do we try to avoid it? And why we should make a commitment to not treat our not treat anybody, but more specifically as black men, not treat our sisters like this. And so I mean, even though it's heavy and even though it seems almost like elementary, I think it's so vital and necessary. So necessary to talk about. Level Up Single Mom says, "Will you make a video about this?" I probably should. I probably should. I probably should sit down and figure out how to communicate that in an effective way, because it's definitely. I think it's especially in related to entertainment. There's layers there of how this stuff is just pervasive. You know. Um, Here, one more comment, and then I'm gonna have to get off. From Dita C. And for those on Instagram, there are more comments and stuff from people in the community on YouTube. So if you would like to come join us, you can always go to my YouTube channel, The Beneficial Black Man. But thank you all, whether you're on Instagram or whether you're on YouTube. Thank you for joining me. Dita C says, unfortunately, these behaviors that fall under SA and grape are normalized in our community and it is frowned upon in families to even talk about it. True, true. And one of the sections, the author was talking about that. This like vow of silence to not discuss this kind of behavior, as abusive behavior within our community, and it's not good. And I think, as uncomfortable as it is, I would say, particularly for as men, as uncomfortable as it is, I'm glad that there are more women expressing and communicating and sharing their stories. It may be very, very hard to hear, but I think it's important because we need to face this stuff. If we want there to be any growth, if we want there to be any change, if we want anything, whatever to happen, we have to face it. And particularly for me, it can be really, really difficult to have to sit and look at this and be like, oh man, this is, you know, really, really bad because that person looks like me. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe not exactly, but that's a black man. That could have been me if I was in dire degenerate form, like that's not good. It's not good, but it needs to be addressed so that we can get away from all this stuff. But yes, I'm gonna stop for now. Gonna try to keep this book going. Again, it's a short book. It's like I said, it's kind of written like a textbook, but we will make our way through it. And again, I think it's important to discuss. I think it's important to discuss. But thank you all for joining me. Thank you all for showing support. Thank you all. I really do appreciate it. Again, I hope the video doesn't get flagged for sensitive language or whatever. I don't know, the rules are on YouTube. But thank you all. I hope you all have a great evening, and Lord willing, I will see you all tomorrow for part 3 as we continue to read through this book. Thank you all again. Appreciate you all. Talk to you all later. Peace.